um, I don't know about you, but I'm getting a little bit sick and tired of all this hypocrisy coming out of the left as far as it pertains, well, to just about everything. But right now, let's start with the masks, okay? Did anybody watch the Super Bowl over the weekend? My gosh, nobody on the left, all these celebrities, all these politicians, they don't seem to think it matters that they wear a mask, despite the fact that they are forcing it down every single person's throat and every parent's throat that's out there in LA right now. Your kid's got to have one at school. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Trish Regan Show. We have a lot to get to today. I want to remind you that parts of this program are brought to you by Legacy Precious Metals. There has never been a better time to invest in precious metals, especially given all the inflation we've seen. So go to legacypminvestments.com. Again, legacypminvestments.com for more. We have to talk about Russia. It's now moving its missiles into position. It does not seem as though those quote-unquote diplomatic talks with President Biden went quite as one would have hoped, right? But then again, consider the team that we're dealing with. Consider just exactly what we're dealing with there. Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton, more and more information coming out about how her team spied on the Trump campaign and made everyone's life a living hell, right? For the entire presidency. Russia was all we heard about. So look, we got to get into that a little bit more too. But let's start first on the mask hypocrisy, because as I've said before, and I'm going to say it again, this has never been entirely about science, except, of course, political science. Right? The left decided that politically speaking, it was worth really pushing this argument of always wearing masks. Now, if you believe that from a science perspective, then why wouldn't you, as someone on the left, maybe say, wear the darn masks when you're at, say, a big crowded event like the Super Bowl? Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, you've got a photo op opportunity over and over and over again. Or maybe you're just eating all night long and drinking all night long, so you can't wear that mask. I mean, this is, I think, what really people find so grating, because it's one thing to say, I'm going to wear a mask, but no, you all have to wear the mask. Oh, and by the way, I'm not going to wear one, right? That's where the problem sort of creeps in. And this is what we've seen from the left over and over and over again. And it's not just what happened out in LA with the Super Bowl, and you can take your pick, all the celebrities out there, all the politicians without their masks. It's what's happened throughout this pandemic. This idea that, you all can't get together, but I can have my holiday thing. I can have my birthday party. I can go to my friends and, whoop it up, but you can't. Because there's this sense that we need to protect the people. People can't protect themselves. And that's where all of this gets really, really messed up. I would just say it's important to remember this expression that comes from the state that I grew up in, which is live free or die. Quite literally, right? In the face of this pandemic, I think you've got to afford people that opportunity to make their own choices, their own decisions on things. Right now, you have the left insisting all children wear masks in schools. Now, in terms of the science of all this, the political science is one thing, but the political science is backfiring on them too. We'll talk about that in a second. But in terms of the science, there was a study that came out of London that said that it was not really provable that this had any effect in terms of being able to reduce the spread of the virus, that is, having kids in masks in school. But I can tell you what it does do. It makes it much harder for children, especially small little children, learning to read. For the very first time, they're learning to communicate. It makes it very hard for them. And think about the consequences as a society. I mean, you think about all the anger that's out there right now. And people say, where's this coming from? Sometimes I wonder if it's because everybody's got a mask on. You can't, well, those that are abiding by the rules, those celebrities out in LA and some politicians in DC apparently don't think they need to wear them. But those that are abiding by the rules, they're wearing these masks. And I wonder if, you can't read people's expressions. You can't see the smile. You can't see sort of the softness in the face as they joke or whatever it may be. And so consequently, everything is just getting ratcheted up. And there is an underlying of anger right now in society, and a lot of reasons for it. I get it. I mean, just think about, being at the grocery store and realizing everything costs at least 7.5% more. That's the kind of stuff that could make the average person a little bit angry. I get it. I understand it. But at the same time, we've got to, as a society, think about what kind of effects these masks are having on all of us. And, I remember early on, maybe shortly after the vaccines were out, being in a small store in a New England town and walking in and seeing a big sign that said, it's up to you whether or not you wear the mask. And I thought, well, that's pretty refreshing, right? Like very, very refreshing. And by the way, it's up to me whether I shop there or not. If I am not comfortable because I think everybody's going maskless, then maybe I won't shop there. But if I'm comfortable, I will. And so again, putting the onus back on the individual and the individual business owner. And by the way, individual school systems as well, these blanket rules that all kids have to be in masks. I'm sorry, but this is going to cause a lot of parents to turn the other way come September. And by the way, I think the left knows that now, which is why you see so many, especially in the Northeast, states peeling back these rules and saying, okay, we're not going to have these blanket rules saying you've got to wear masks all the time because they know it's going to cost them, right? Again, getting back to the political science of everything. I want to turn to another story, which is obviously making a lot of news in maybe some parts of the media, but not all. It's amazing to me that nobody has been covering the Durham report, what has been alleged out of that about Hillary Clinton hiring basically, some thugs, effectively, some technology thugs, to go in there and hack into the Trump computer systems. I mean, this is wild stuff. And yet it's going nowhere. I don't understand this. Apparently even John Radcliffe had said, look, there's a lot of stuff here that would merit indictments. And Comey and others there, Peter Strzok, they just, it went right on by them. Of course it did, right? Because all these people have some kind of horse that they are backing, and that's what's so messed up. I'll tell you, I'm so disgusted with politics right now, and I'm seriously disgusted with the left because it's like they just have their agenda, their way. They did not like Trump, regardless of what you think about Trump, okay? Regardless. Let's just leave him out of the equation for a moment. What we're talking about is serious stuff. You got one campaign hacking into another. You have them presenting that evidence as though it's gospel. Our own darn FBI doesn't have the two brain cells enough to check it out and say maybe we ought to check out some of these sources. Turns out some of the people compiling this information were alleged to be Russian spies. I mean, there's one guy that was on Christopher Steele's team that our own government was checking out, and so this is the guy writing the so-called dossier. It is so messed up, and the fact that she doesn't have to face the music on this is pretty darn alarming, and there's something terribly wrong, and that's a big problem. I want to talk about Russia because this is a really, really big deal. Interesting, by the way, this is all happening under Joe Biden's watch. Somehow we managed to keep it together, and Ukraine and Russia were not like, about to go to war together during the Trump administration. But Biden comes in, and Afghanistan's a mess. Now, Russia, Ukraine is a mess. And by the way, nobody's doing anything about our own border. I'll just point out our own border, which is expected to have upwards of 2.1 million people coming here illegally this year. But before we get to that, just a quick moment. I want to take a second to remind you, if you have not done this, to go and make sure that you have life insurance. It's actually really, really important stuff. Before you even think about investing in the market, before you think about doing all that, you need to make sure that you're covering your bases. And part of those bases, okay, means making sure that you have life insurance. It's one of the things that you should do. We're sort of into the new year, right? At this point, we're in the midst of February, but I still consider it one of those sort of New Year's resolutions that you can do. And by the way, that you should do. It's really, really important stuff. SelectQuote is a great resource for you, and you can just within a couple of minutes make a really big difference in your life and potentially your family's life. And you don't want to go to anyone for this. You do want a professional, which is one of the reasons why I recommend SelectQuote. For 35 years, SelectQuote has helped people to save 50% or more by shopping highly rated insurance carriers. In fact, SelectQuote found a 40-year-old man with high blood pressure, a 10-year, $500,000 life insurance policy for only $19 a month. I mean, $19 a month, very, very affordable. So this is what you need to be thinking about, how to protect your family, all that you've worked for. The quotes are 100% free. They take only minutes. So do me this favor, do yourself this favor. Go to selectquote.com today and get this quote for yourself and for your family. It matters. Full details on sample policy and carrier ratings at selectquote.com/commercials. Prices could vary by health, issuing company, and other factors, not available in all states. But back here for a moment to the Hillary Clinton Ukrainian stuff and to Russia. I just think it's very interesting that we're dealing with this Russia crisis at a time. Can you imagine if Trump was dealing with this? I guess they would have said, oh, well, he's a Russian spy. So, of course, Russia's going to try and take more of Ukraine territory. I would just point out, like, if we're going to be realists about all this, remember, when Putin took Crimea, that was actually under President Barack Obama's watch. So if I'm Putin, I'm thinking to myself, hey, look at what Obama was willing to do. He was such a pacifist. He was willing to let me go in there. Why not try it again? And I'll try it now with Joe Biden at the helm. Somehow, some way, Donald Trump and that administration, I do think you had some really intelligent people there leading the way in terms of the State Department, Mike Pompeo, even, when you think about all the diplomatic actors involved there, all of them were really more thoughtful. Rex Tillerson even more thoughtful, had a better background than what we see now, which is not much. Not much. I actually think Anthony Blinken is going to go down in history as one of the worst secretaries of states ever. And you know what? This is on him. What we saw out of Afghanistan, I'll tell you this. I actually haven't cried a lot in my career, which, think whatever you will of that. Sometimes I think you're so in the moment, and I'm trying to bring these stories to you that I don't almost have the luxury of crying. I remember being down at Hurricane Katrina and seeing some really awful things. And my biggest pressure was just making sure that I had my footage so that I could be delivering this news to you, in that case, back in network news on the evening news every night. And so you didn't have really the opportunity to slow down and think about the magnitude of all that was going on. It sort of hit me after 6 weeks on the ground there. I remember coming back, and it was kind of like a PTSD thing. You're like, oh my gosh, think about just what I saw. But I will say this, as those pictures unfolded out of Afghanistan, I cried multiple times. I cried as I was, thinking about what I was going to say in the show every day to you. And I just think I was in part crying because it was so senseless. And I was so frustrated with this team led by Blinken and Biden and Harris. And now Harris is out there trying to do diplomatic negotiations. It's like, who's on first? These people do not know what they're doing. They're not capable people. And this is who we are left in the hands of. A quick reminder, everyone, if you're not on Locals, please join me there. It's a wonderful, wonderful new social media platform, and I go live there every single week. I'm answering some of your questions. We have a great community, just a really, really warm, thoughtful, thought-provoking community. I can't say enough good things about these people. I do want to give a quick shout out to one of our followers there. His handle, he goes by Red, White, and Blue. So Red, White, and Blue, thank you for all your contributions there on Locals. They're so appreciated, and your insight is so appreciated. And all of the people there that have been doing so much to really keep that community going all the time. You can go to that Trish Regan community, weigh in, meet everybody there. And of course, I'm there this Thursday. It'll be this Thursday at 12 noon doing a Q&A with everyone. So I encourage you to be part of that. But really, I think right now we're on the brink of a real disaster here with Russia. And we now know that they've moved their missiles into position. And they have 105 battalion tactical groups there. This is up from 83 groups just earlier in the month. Hundreds of thousands of troops. Biden has asked Putin to back off, to take the troops away. Putin says, no way, Jose, not happening. And so we're now in sort of this standoff. And our own government, our own president of the United States has made such stupid comments as, oh, well, it's bound to happen. It's almost like he's giving them the green light. It's almost as though, dare I say, they kind of want this. And, Tulsi Gabbard has spoken out about this, about the need for war, just somehow this being part of the machine, right, at play, and the contracts, etc., and the money. And gosh, I hope that's not the case. I really, really hope it's not the case. But I think there's reason to believe that for whatever this is, that there are some that want to jump sort of feet first into the fire. And to me, it's the last thing you want to do. I've always said you lose dollars, not lives. Let's sanction, 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 sanction. Let's use every diplomatic tool in our toolbox to try and resolve this peacefully before we start sending troops. We already have. Before we start losing American lives. And so I'm fearful that we're going to have some real problems there. And look, I think the American people will blame the president for this one. I think they will once again say, look, you screwed up Afghanistan, you're screwing up Russia, you're certainly screwing up the US. Just look at the inflation numbers that we got recently. Look at the economic misery index. People are not happy, and this is what's reflected in his poll numbers. And so I think the Democrats, the good news is, if you want to see the silver lining in anything and you want to see it as glass half full, which I try to do, the good news is people are going to react, and they are going to react when they go to the voting booths. And I do believe come 2022, a lot of changes are about to happen. Come 24, more changes. But listen, you can only push the American people so hard before we push back. Thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. Quick reminder, do make sure that you go to Locals. It's a great group. I'd love to have you there. TrishRegan.locals.com, and we'll talk again tomorrow.